Welcome back here, boys and girls. You know what time it is. 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday through Thursday. Welcome back to our nightly newsletter. My name is Joseph James, School of Trade, Sideways Markets. Today is the 16th day of the 4th month of the year. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2014. Thanks for sticking around with me here this evening and getting ready for tomorrow with our nightly newsletter. We got a great newsletter in store for you guys this evening. Charlie Chaplin was born today. We'll talk about this day in history, one of the pioneers of Hollywood here in the United States. We'll talk about the markets today. Crude oil tumbles lower. Mini Russell and gold trade sideways with just a hint of bullishness. We're going to grab some charts and we're going to review that in just a moment. The news today, we heard from our good gal, Janet Yellen, our Fed chairperson, I should say, Janet Yellen. She got things stirred up here this afternoon. We heard from manufacturing today. We heard from inventories on crude today. And we also heard about the housing market today. We'll take a look at what happened in the news this afternoon. We'll talk about that in just a moment. We'll also take a look at tomorrow. Tomorrow's the final trading day of the week. We got Good Friday on Friday. And tomorrow is also options expiration. Don't forget, stick around. We're talking about the news tomorrow. Last day of the week, we got talks planned for Russia, Crimea, and we got jobless claims tomorrow morning in addition to what we spoke about before. Don't miss out on that. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a newsletter if we didn't finish the session off here with some charts. I've got some great buying opportunities for you on crude oil, and we got that sideways range we're watching right now on the Russell and gold. So stick around. We got a great newsletter here for you guys. Now, at any time, if you need help, head over to SchoolOfTrade.com or SidewaysMarkets.com. We have somebody standing by here, guys, 24/7 to help you guys out. If you're not watching this video on our blog right now, what are you waiting for? Go right below the video on our YouTube page and follow the link that will take you over to SidewaysMarkets.com, where you can download all the material I'm going to go over here today. So that's right. Right below this video on our blog at SidewaysMarkets.com, right? One of the most popular trading blogs on the internet for good reason. We got tons of resources on here for you. Right below this video, you can click right there and download today's newsletter, charts, and commentary. So if you want to have the charts next to the video while I'm going through the chart, you can have your charts off to the side. Just follow that link right there and download your own copy of all the charts and all of the commentary for today. And then, of course, one last thing here, guys. If you want to get an invite sent to your inbox for our newsletter every evening, register on the left-hand side for our newsletter. Upper left-hand side, I have a special free pass for you guys to come out and join our live trade room this afternoon as a guest. Let's jump right into it here this morning, talk about the markets today. Now, of course, open up our VIP chart of crude, and you can see right away here, we had an opening print well above yesterday's highs. In fact, we went in the overnight session all the way up to 105 before tumbling here in the U.S. session. Now remember, what's been happening lately on crude oil, well, this is not just crude, this is all the markets. We have a very different kind of personality we're getting right now. There's a bit of a change in the guard right now. We're getting a lot of movement overnight, and then what's happening in the U.S. session is we're sitting here for a bit, right, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then bam, we get those big moves after 10 a.m., 10:30. Why is that happening? Why are we getting the moves before the U.S. session? Well, it has a lot to do with the fact that crude oil is being propped up by this whole, all these shenanigans, right, in Russia, Ukraine, the Crimea region of Ukraine. So we know that the reason why crude is propped up above 100 right now is because of those, right, again, this little soap opera that we've been watching the past few months developing. And right now, kind of the thermometer is starting to tick up a little bit in, regarding Ukraine. So what's happening is you're getting a lot of these moves happening in Asia, in Europe, right, coming out of London. By the time we get to it here in the U.S., we're seeing gaps up, gaps down, and then this has been very typical. It's been trading sideways for a few hours, and then later on in the morning, it's beginning to thaw out. Today, it dropped because today we had inventories on crude. So what happened today was same thing we've had the past few weeks. We've had the move happen before the opening bell in the U.S. You can see we start there for a few hours, And then certainly today, don't forget, we had 10:30 news, right? 10:30 inventories came out, and that was a remarkable report. They were expecting 1 million barrels in inventory. They got 10 million barrels. Just a little bit bearish. Now, if you remember in the trade room today, we were watching this area right here, and it was a little bit shaky. We didn't quite know if those sellers were going to latch on here. It was very low volume. We were expecting to see a bigger move down much faster, but sure enough, if you stayed patient, you saw those patterns setting up here to sell it short as soon as we re-entered back into the range from yesterday. This is what we call an inside-out trade, right? It's called an inside-out setup. We go outside the range, gap up, and we end up, whoops-a-daisy, right back into that range from yesterday. As you can see here, not a very big change on the session here. Not a very big change. We did move lower here, but you can see, though, right about where we opened, we almost made it back. So didn't lose too much ground. Ended up below the 104, 187 ticks, a pretty typical range here. But what's very interesting, though, is that we opened up at the highs. You can see I got volume spike, volume spike, volume spike. So we pretty much had volume everywhere, but the majority of the volume is traded down near these lows. So this tells us that we have some accepting, right? We have some acceptance of prices below 104. I would assume now, if these buyers don't grab this thing as kind of a discount, right? A bargain here to be a buyer. If we don't see these buyers come back in, we're probably going to find ourselves making ourselves comfortable here around this 104 to 103. You'll notice we got 103 down bottom, we got 104 up top. So we may end up seeing this become a sideways range going into tomorrow. I'm expecting to see a bid here. I'm expecting to see crude take here and go higher. We got these issues, this soap opera developing in Ukraine. I'm going to have to wait for tomorrow, but that's what I would expect to happen here, right? Been propped up here. And we'll see if it wants to go higher tomorrow morning. I'm bullish with an opening print tomorrow above 104.82. I'm bearish with an opening print tomorrow below 103.12. I don't think we're going to make it all the way back up to 104.82, but heck, this is crude we're talking about. And just a whisper from the Ukraine, we might definitely be right back to that $105 a barrel, which did happen in the overnight session. So I'm watching closely right now. If you're bullish right now, this is a great bargain, right? You get a great bargain price right now on crude, especially since we were at 105 only a few hours ago. It's tough to say exactly where it's going to be, but you know me. As I see new higher highs, I'll be buying pullbacks, right? So on and so forth. Don't say I didn't warn you. So crude here tumbles back into its range. 103 is the low, 104 is the high. We tested 105. It'll be interesting to see what happens next. Moving on here, now to gold. Moving over from the black gold to the yellow gold. You can see here we opened up right at the same level that we closed at 1:30 yesterday afternoon. That doesn't happen very often with gold, right? This doesn't happen very often. No gap up, no gap down. It's almost as if everybody says, okay, we're good. Right here, it sounds just about right. Because you can see we closed here at 1:30. We opened back up at 8:20 the following morning. Nothing changed. We tried to break up, couldn't make it happen. Tried to break down, couldn't make it happen. We can see the volume here pretty much right where we started the session today. This is, if you looked up the definition of balanced in the trading dictionary, this would be the chart you would see. 136 ticks today, a very typical range. Again, very small movement. We basically started here, we finished there, very small move higher, and closing price just above that 1,300. You can see here we get this 1,300 big round number, just barely holding here above that big round number. We opened up at the highs, that's bullish. Volume in the middle, that's neutral. Closing in the middle, neutral. 2 days, neutral. As you can see, very balanced on on gold. We're going to see a lot more of this balanced price action as we go to some other charts here later on in the newsletter. I'm looking to get below the 97.9 to get short. I'm looking for a price to open tomorrow morning above 13.07 to be long. Looking for bullish price action above the 07s. Bearish price action below 97.9. This very narrow range today, right, relatively narrow range today, tells us tomorrow should be a bigger day for gold. Last day of the week for day trading tomorrow morning. We'll have to wait and see what gold does here tomorrow. Moving over to the Russell now. Now, the Russell was interesting today. It gave us some great buying opportunities at the lows, some great selling opportunities at the highs, but it was a very low volume market from start to finish. You can see here, up, down, 300 ticks in yesterday's range. That means the Russell ran a marathon yesterday, making today a day of rest. So a little bit sluggish here on the Russell. No wonder why after that big move all over the place yesterday. One thing that we can see here, though, is bam, bam, bam. We got 3 previous high of day. I've got yesterday's highs, right? That'd be Tuesday's highs. I've got Monday's highs. And the previous one, that's Friday's highs. So we are trying desperately to push higher. The news today in the U.S. was nothing but good, and that kept these equity markets pushing higher, although this Russell very, very quiet. You can see 121 ticks here, relatively typical range, nothing like we saw yesterday in the market. Net change here, we are rising higher, and again, closing print here at 22.7. You can see here, though, we opened above, right? That was bullish. We closed near the highs. That is bullish. The volume, of course, continues to be very balanced right in the middle, which means we spent most of the time today trading sideways. This balanced volume tells me to buy the lows and sell the highs, treating this as a sideways range. Again, volume in the middle, we're neutral, we're balanced. 2-day relationship is definitely higher and definitely bullish. What am I looking for right now? I want to see us get above the 1128.7 for a bullish price action tomorrow morning. I want to see us open below 16.5 for bearish price action tomorrow morning. Alrighty, so now you guys know what happened. Narrow range on the Russell and gold. Crude, nice big wide range today, tumbling off those highs at 10:30 this morning. It was a relatively exciting session, but once again, the moves are definitely coming later on in the day. Let's keep going. As far as news goes today, we heard from Janet Yellen this morning. Janet Yellen continues to throw fuel on the fire, telling us that we should not be worried about any disruptions in tapering. We should not be worried about increased interest rates, and we should expect to see that accommodative monetary policy, as we say here in the trade room, the loose monetary policy, probably going to be in place for a while, right? And gosh, I really like Janet Yellen. She seems to be a great person. I've really enjoyed kind of listening to her as she took the reins of our Federal Reserve Bank. Housing starts. Housing starts were released today at 8 o'clock this morning. Housing starts were strong, but not as strong as expected. A hidden silver lining in today's housing report was the increase in new single-family homes. Now remember, this has been a big deal the past few months. Everyone's complaining about there's not enough supply, right? How can we buy a home if there's no homes for sale? This, of course, looks like we're starting to get that spring thaw of this housing market, which got really beat up at the beginning of the year thanks to good old Mother Nature. The big news today, though, industrial production. Outside of crude inventories, very important. We saw industrial production today at 9:15. This shows us that manufacturing is making a big comeback after Mother Nature had its way with us for about 90 days, end of last year, first of this year. We've been waiting to see if the manufacturing sector was going to get a rebound, and they definitely are. They definitely are. Now, the big news today, if you were trading crude, was the good old inventory report. Now, we talked about this morning in the trade room, right? I was unable to do last night's newsletter, but last night's newsletter would have said we saw the API number last night with a big build, and today was a shocking, literally a shocking. I've traded crude for over a decade. I've never seen inventories like this. We were expecting a 1 million barrel build. Okay, that's pretty darn big to begin with. We got 10 million. Yeah, as in 10 times what they were expecting. The very interesting part about this was the reaction to this. Now, 6 months ago, this would have had crude dropping $5. We would have been through the floor. You wouldn't have been able to you wouldn't have been able to get your hands on anything to sell short. It would have moved so fast down. But what happened today? 10:30, news comes out. Yeah, it pushed lower, but then it went sideways. It's grinded here as we sat at a key support level. And if you were with me in the trade room this morning, my exact words were, something's up here, because this should be selling off. Well, sure enough, it did end up selling off, and we were able to, this afternoon, find some great opportunities into those trades short. But it was very interesting how, boy, for being such a big inventory number, it didn't drop very easily. And that really told me this morning just how big of a deal this whole little, the soap opera in the Crimea region of Ukraine really is. It definitely told us today, though, that there's definitely some concerns about that Crimea soap opera. So we're going to see what happens tomorrow. That's why I've got to be bullish right now. As soon as I start to see some frothing here at these lows, as soon as we start to see some people get to the buy side on crude, we know this party is going to probably start pushing higher again. This day in history, one of my favorite times of our newsletter, April 16th, 1889. A future Hollywood legend is born, Mr. Charlie Chaplin. Did you know that Charlie Chaplin got his start in the movie industry because his mother was a singer and had a difficult time one time, couldn't finish her show? Charlie Chaplin was 11 years old when he was tossed on stage. Incredible story about this guy. If you haven't learned more about him before, click that hyperlink and you'll learn more about Charlie Chaplin, born this day in 1889. Here's a pretty funny one. Now, kids, make sure you've got your parents with you when you go Google searching what this little acronym is. April 16th, 1943, a Swiss chemist, at least he was Swiss after this experiment, Mr. Albert Hofmann discovers LSD. See, now, I should have told my parents that when I was a teenager, right? Sorry, Mom, I just, whoops-a-daisy, just discovered it by accident. And I also discovered that you can, I can't even talk without laughing on this one. But Albert Hofmann discovers LSD and its hallucinogenic effects after accidentally consuming the drug in his laboratory. I don't even want to know how he accidentally consumed it. What, did he put it on a piece of toast? All of a sudden, guys, you got to click that link. You got to follow that link and read about his journal. He actually writes about it, and it's I'll let you guys have the fun with it. All right, pretty funny the way that he describes it. Right, he describes it as a non-uncomfortable, or it was something like, it wasn't bad, it wasn't that good though. Very funny, very funny. April 16th, 1972, Cape Canaveral, Florida, Apollo 16, the fifth of six U.S. lunar landings, right, on the moon, successfully launched its 238,000-mile journey. Pretty incredible, guys. Pretty incredible to think. There were some astronauts that were on the moon for 3 days. Some astronauts stayed up there. This is 1972. We don't know about this stuff yet. Nowadays, it's like, oh yeah, go to the moon. Heck, I can buy a ticket to Pluto right now if I want to. But this was the final frontier. Just imagine how brave these people were. Incredible. And then a relatively somber note, 2007, this day in history, one of the deadliest shootings in U.S. history, 32 students. If you include the guy who shot everybody, it was 33 people died after being gunned down to campus at Virginia Polytech. Very, very sad story. You can learn more about that by following that hyperlink. I remember that day like it was yesterday. What a sad day in our history. So this day in history, got some funny stuff from Charlie Chaplin, a little bit comical about the old Albert Hofmann discovering LSD, very brave people at Apollo 16, and a very sad story there, right, regarding that school shooting in Virginia in 2007. What about news for tomorrow? First of all, we talked about this on Monday. Tomorrow is a short day because we've got Good Friday on Friday, and of course, we've got your early close tomorrow. You can see all the news right here, so grab a copy of the news worksheet. So we have a lot of important events tomorrow. The biggest one is this early close. So if you're wondering why nothing's happening tomorrow afternoon, it's because nothing is happening tomorrow afternoon. 2 p.m. markets close. That typically means that we're going to be done as of 11 a.m. You're probably not going to see anything good happen after 11 a.m. You'll probably see some movement tomorrow after 11 a.m., but it will be nothing but Hail Mary trading ahead of the long weekend. And we don't know exactly when this will begin, but we do see that we have a scheduled meeting with the EU, US, Russia, and Ukrainian officials tomorrow. It's tough to tell what's going to happen because of it, but again, we know that this little shenanigans happening between Russia and Ukraine are definitely impacting the price of crude. And then how could we forget? As if we need one more thing to worry about for tomorrow. Tomorrow is OPEX. But isn't OPEX supposed to be on a Friday? Yeah, the third Friday of every 1 month, options expire. But of course, Friday is a holiday, which means they've pushed it forward 24 hours. Now, options expiration on Thursday means, again, we are not going to expect a lot here after 11 o'clock tomorrow. If it's really, really slow, we're going to know exactly why. This may have a cumulative effect tomorrow. We may have people just say, heck with it. I'm not going to mess around with OPEX. I'll look and see what happens regarding the shenanigans in Ukraine. I've got half day. This may end up being a sleeper tomorrow. Luckily for us, though, we got 3 important news tomorrow here. We got jobless claims at 8:30. We got Philly Fed at 10. And then we got 2 p.m., right? We get the markets closing. So we got some big Red Star news tomorrow, right at jobless claims at 8:30. So hopefully we'll get a chance to get some price action moving before everybody takes off to finish off Passover and, of course, traveling for Easter weekend. Looking at the markets here this evening, getting ready for tomorrow, I've got crude pushing higher. Crude pushing higher. I've got buy zones at 103.36, 102.46, and 101.93. I'm looking to be a buyer here on the crude long term. I've also got my short-term time frame on crude telling me that I've got some resistance here, and I've got to get above that $104 per barrel. I'm going to try to get above that area, and then we'll be buying here tomorrow. I'm going to use the 104.59, 104.78, and 104.99 as my profit targets here. All right, don't say I didn't warn you. Looking to buy here on crude. If we don't go above 104, look for a buying opportunity at the 103.36, 103.15. But if we end up breaking down here, though, that tells me big time those buyers have failed, and we're going to have to go back to the drawing board and take a look at our anchor charts. Moving forward here for gold. Now, we talked about gold having kind of a sloppy, choppy day today, going higher, going lower, but pretty much ending right where it started today. Well, you can see right here, trend line off the lows, trend line off the highs. Mama said, don't fiddle with that middle, JJ. Don't fiddle with that middle. I'm going to buy those lows. I'm going to sell those highs. I'm buying the zone here at 12.89. I'm selling the zone at 13.21.3. I have another chance to sell overhead at 13.35. But as of right now, though, I'm looking to buy lows. I'm looking to sell highs of this range here. And if you look at the daily ATR on the gold right now, getting very, very narrow. So we're not expecting many big breakouts with continued moves. So take your money quickly on gold right now. Moving forward to the gold fast time frame, look at this. We got higher lows. I got some highs up there. We're getting higher highs here. So, yeah, it definitely has a slight tone of bullishness to it here this evening, which is why I'm going to say we're looking to buy this 1300, looking to buy this 1296. I've got to take some profit off at this 1305, and I have targets overhead here, 1311 and 1315. So if I had to guess right now, I would say buying here on gold. But again, remember that big chart here. We know the best opportunities to buy will come here at 12.89. Targets up top here at 13.21.3. So we got plenty of room here to go higher, right? This is only 13.15. I've got that. Sorry, what was that again here over here? It was the 12.89. So 12.89 puts us right about there. So we're looking for a possible double bottom at the lows, but that's going to take a big move here, breaking through these buy zones first. So looking for buys right now. I'm going to take my profit off at 1305.1. 1311.5 and 1315.3. Wrapping up here with the mighty mini Russell. Russell had a relatively narrow range today, and it's very easy to see why. We're resting right into that 1132, 1124. you can see here the Russell is stuck. We're stuck between the 1116 area and the 1132, right? 1124. So we're definitely stuck right here. Now, what I would assume is if we start to tumble off these highs, we have a great spot here to sell short down to 1100. If we push higher, we've got to get through 1132 before we're going to start finding some wide open spaces up to that 1143.2. As you can see, we do have trend lines here off the highs. That'll be a target if we get a runaway market tomorrow morning. Trend line here down at the lows. That'll be a target. That's why I said we're looking to buy this 1100. Right, we'll use 1100 as our target if we're getting short tomorrow morning. Moving forward here to the fastest time frame here for us. We know now, again, we got that very sideways range right now. This makes a lot of sense here going into the Holy Weekend. We got Passover and we got Easter weekend coming around the corner here. We do have, now look closely, this is a very small higher high. So it's basically double top, but we have higher lows. So if anything right now, we're getting a bit of an ascending triangle, same highs, but higher lows. So it basically tells us that we're getting higher lows, but the same highs. It's only a matter of time here before this thing just breaks out. And the reality is that the fact that these E-minis have stayed above kind of their lows from earlier this week tells us that we're starting to gain some traction here right now. So what I'm looking for is, if we start to go higher, remember on the Russell, we'd like to get above that 32. Not sure how easy it's going to be to get up there because we got to get through these areas first. So I'm looking for here is buying above the 23.1. Looking for those wave patterns long. I'm going to take some profit off at 27.4, but don't be surprised here if we top at 28 and then head back lower because we got this sideways range. If we blow right through it, we're buying up to that 1130. I got 1130.6, 31.5, and 33 even for our targets here overhead. You know me though, I would much rather be a buyer down at these lows if I could get it. Try to buy those 19s to 18s there at those lows. Any of these areas here, looking for a buy here, looking for a buy here, and looking for a buy right there. So, of course, I'm not going to push just the buy button right now. I'm going to wait and see what happens. If price starts to rise off this zone, I'm looking for a pullback trade to get in, target here, and, of course, targets above. All right, guys, sideways ranges on gold and Russell with a slight tinge of bullishness. We also have a buying opportunity here on crude right now because of the little snafu happening in Russia and Ukraine. And again, I think those buyers are going to come in here right now and see this as a great bargain basement price on crude right now because we were right at 105 less than 12 hours ago. Guys and gals, I want to thank you so much for being a part of our newsletter here this evening. Don't forget to share this with a friend. Don't forget to join our newsletter mailing list. Register for our free trial, and as always, I have a special invite for you to come join me tomorrow afternoon in our live trade room. Remember to learn it so you can earn it. Come out and see me tomorrow morning in our trade room. We'll have updated charts, short-term trading opportunities, and we always call our trades live in real time with exact entry opportunities. All right, guys, have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios, amigos. Bye-bye for now.